Well, if you've made it to the halfway mark, good afternoon and thanks for tuning in. I'm Jurnee Taylor. We want to head over to the weather department where we find meteorologist Nathan Scott, and it is a typical Arkansas day. Nathan, it is humid out there. I barely have my hair laying down. I've been touching my hair all day. Like, come on, hair, act right. It is humid.
You're not the only one, Jurnee. My wife woke up this morning. She typically has straight hair.
Yes.
No, it was filled with curls, and she's like, I don't know what to do today. Forget it. Because, yes, it is humid. A little taste of summer outside this afternoon with all the humidity, and the temperatures continue to climb up. Even with some filtered sunshine, we've got partly sunny skies. The numbers are responding. 78 right now in Little Rock, 77 in Hot Springs, 84 though in Texarkana, and I think most locations will climb up into the 80s over the next 1 to 2 hours. The clouds are not producing any rain at this time. We do have a front draped across North Arkansas, and therefore North Arkansas, where those dew points are lower, it feels much more comfortable. To the south, we're in the soup, and we're going to stay in the soup at least for the next 2 days. Temperatures climbing up into the low to mid 80s. There certainly could be an 88, possibly in north central Arkansas or northwest Arkansas, where there will be more sun. But then the front makes its way back down to the south and southeast later on Thursday. So we do have the potential. We could see some strong, possibly severe thunderstorms. Most of the state right now is under a marginal risk, and that's primarily for later Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. I'll have more on the potential of stormy weather tomorrow coming up.
It's now day 3 of the ongoing murder trial for Keyshawn Smith, who's charged in the October 2020 killing of Pine Bluff detective Kevin Collins. During open arguments yesterday, prosecutors say a warrant was issued for the arrest of Keyshawn Smith when Detective Collins spotted him near a motel while working undercover. After moving in, that's when lawyers say the shooting broke out. The defense, on the other hand, says police failed to identify themselves before moving into action. Now here's a look at what's happened so far in the trial. With jury selection and opening arguments out the way, the case continues today. We'll be sure to bring you those details from the courtroom later tonight at 5 and 6. You can also follow this case on our website at thp11.com. The conversation surrounding the Netflix series based on the Pulaski County Jail continues, with the sister of an inmate featured on the show now speaking out. If you've been watching the show, you might be familiar with Daniel Gatlin, better known as Crooks. He says the death of his father is what led to his troubled past. According to his sister, the jail experience isn't uncommon for Crooks, and says she has mixed emotions about what's shown in the Netflix series.
Looking at it, I do think that everyone experienced it a little differently. So it would be beneficial for some, but maybe not everybody, from what I'm seeing.
Juanita's brother has since been released from the Pulaski County Jail, but despite being locked up again in Florida, she says he's putting in effort to change. State lawmakers could decide on the fate of crypto mines, with those discussions expected to be at the top of their concerns today. Several communities are already voicing their concerns over loud noise produced by crypto mine facilities. We saw those folks show up in protest during the start of the fiscal session at the state capitol. Lawmakers will resume talks this afternoon. We'll of course have more on what they decide tonight at 5 and 6. Governor Sanders' $19,000 lectern purchase was a hot topic during a 3-hour-long audit review yesterday. The biggest concerns coming from officials is whether it was a reasonable and lawful purchase. The governor's staff coming to her defense, saying private funds were used with no expense to taxpayers. We're getting a better look at the improvements being made to the sewer system in Little Rock. Fish Creek is one of the urban wetlands starting to see better days as cleanup continues for massive amounts of piled up trash. Concerns are starting to simmer regarding overflowing sewer waste. Those efforts have been underway for decades now, thanks to an agreement in 2001, something Fish Creek leaders say is making a major difference.
The nastiness that's been involved with, sanitary sewers is no longer a problem here. So we're very grateful for that.
The efforts to keep the sewers clean have impacted both the people as well as Arkansas's wildlife. Improvements also being made on construction for a brand new facility that will serve as a home for the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra. Now, our team got an early look at the progress being made on the Stella Boyle Smith Music Center. And according to architects, the inspiration behind the building's design came naturally.
We thought, how do we create a building which really shows what's going on inside of it? So we wanted to do something that was expressive from the interior, but also gave you glimpses to the interior. And so we were inspired by the idea of performance, stages, curtains, that kind of thing.
The Music Center will offer space for the Ronald Music Academy and the Arkansas Symphony Youth Orchestra. New developments overseas as Israel's war cabinet met for the third time since Iran's weekend attacks. So far, Israel has not shared any plans for retaliation with the U.S., but a top U.S. official says some with the Biden administration is expecting Israel to conduct a limited strike inside Iran. Grabbing national attention, a terrifying moment turned deadly for an Uber driver in Ohio. CBS's Lilia Luciano shares what led up to the tragic scene.
Lalitha Hall screamed for help as William Brock confronted her with a gun.
Yes, I know what you're after.
But as the Uber driver tried to flee, police say the 81-year-old resident shot her multiple times, and then he called 911.
Well, I shot her in the leg first time, and I shot her in the shoulder.
Why did you do that?
Because I was threatened that she was going to come and kill me.
The county sheriff's office says Brock was the subject of a scam call concerning an incarcerated relative, which turned to threats and a demand for money. Police say Hall, the driver, was also contacted either by the same scammer or an accomplice to pick up a package from Brock's residence through the Uber app.
The guy on the phone center here had Joe.
So the male on the phone was trying to get money from you, and she was knocking on the door at the same time?
Yes, and he was telling me he was going to kill me and the family and everybody else around.
Hall, who was 61, died from her injuries in the hospital. Police say she made no threats or assaults towards Brock before the shooting, other than to ask about the package she was sent to retrieve. They also say Brock took her cell phone and refused to let her leave. Last week, Brock was charged with felony murder, and now he could face 15 years to life behind bars, plus a $15,000 fine. He has pleaded not guilty.
What does the prosecution need to prove in this case?
That Brock knew he was using deadly force, and what the prosecution is going to say is there is just no reason to shoot 3 times when somebody is trying to leave your property. If somebody is trying to flee, almost by definition, they are no longer posing a threat.
Uber says it has banned the account of the person who ordered Hall's trip and has been in touch with both her family and Clark County law enforcement. It is hard to know if the alleged scammers will be held liable for Hall's death. It's not clear that they could have predicted this ruse would lead to a deadly outcome. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, New York.
The jury selection process continues for the historic hush money trial against former President Donald Trump. He faces 34 counts of felony charges, which allege he used cash in attempt to silence an affair with an adult film star. Trump taking his fight against the DA to a corner store, which was the same site of a fatal attack 2 years ago that led to criticism against Trump's prosecutor. The visit comes as Trump repeatedly slams the case's presiding judge.
This judge is so conflicted. He's rushing this trial, and he's doing as much as he can for the Democrats.
While court is not in session today, the judge says opening arguments could start as soon as Monday, with at least 5 more jurors and half a dozen alternates still needing to be chosen. NASA is confirming that a piece of debris crashing into a home in Florida last month came off the International Space Station. The space agency says the metal object was part of a space station cargo pallet. Just last month, on March 8th, that object blasted through Earth's atmosphere, though NASA says they expected it to burn up. For one Florida homeowner, he says it was a terrifying moment when that piece came smashing into his home.
It was a tremendous sound, and it almost hit my son. He was 2 rooms over and heard it all.
According to NASA, an investigation is brewing to determine why the debris survived and plans to make changes as needed. Some of music's most memorable tracks are coming back to light. When we get back, which songs landed a spot on the recording registry.
And the ACs will be needed tonight because temperatures are only dropping down into the mid to upper 60s. However, going into the weekend, these numbers may not even be our highs. We've got much cooler temperatures headed in our direction. Let you know how cool it's going to get. Talk about the potential of maybe severe weather on Thursday. It's all coming up.